It's been nearly 50 years since two American athletes raised their fists in protest of the treatment of African Americans before an Olympic audience and television viewers around the world. And there's a local connection to the now infamous salute. Olympic decathlete Thomas Waddell boldly stood in support of those protesting Olympians, John Carlos and Tommie Smith, while the majority of other people called them unpatriotic and worse. I learned some more from Springfield College professor Marty Dobrow.
Tom Waddell is someone I became very interested in as a sort of social justice figure at the college where I teach at Springfield College in many ways. He walked with Dr. King in 1965 in Selma in support of voting rights. He later became a figure in the gay liberation movement. Later in the 1970s, he started something called the Gay Games. He was really on many, many levels way ahead of his time. And then sort of looking through some documents, saw that during this iconic moment of athletic social protest in 1968 in the Olympics, he stood up for the two sprinters, Tommie Smith and John Carlos, who made this iconic stand, using their platform, literally their platform, as a way to illuminate.
Dais.
Exactly, and so Smith won the gold, Carlos won the bronze, and they bowed their heads and lifted their fists in support of Black Power, for which they were widely condemned, cast as being very unpatriotic. But right there in the moment, looking at newspaper accounts of that, Tom Waddell was a very forceful advocate for their protest.
What did he say?
He was quoted in papers the next day saying that he was in complete support of what they were doing, that he felt that they had not discredited the flag. If anything, the flag had discredited them, and that this was not going to hurt America's image overseas, but he thought it might actually help it. So these were incredibly controversial comments for anyone to make, let alone an Olympic athlete who happened to be a doctor and in the U.S. Army at the time.
Because Tom Waddell, decathlete, just when you talk about all-American, I think he sort of checked all those boxes.
Without question. When he was in his days at Springfield College, he was the best athlete on campus, maybe the best athlete ever to come through Springfield College. 3 sports stand out in the unlikely combination of football, gymnastics, and track and field. Such an accomplished athlete in track and field that years later, 9 years after he graduated, in his early 30s, he makes the U.S. Olympic team, as you mentioned, in the decathlon, itself one of the greatest athletic challenges that there is.
Grueling.
Absolutely grueling. And here's this guy, doctor, Army, paratrooper, athlete, great-looking guy, as you mentioned, someone who really checked all the boxes. And then years later, to the absolute shock of many of his college teammates, comes out as gay in the most public forum possible, in the pages of People magazine in 1976.
Wow, so really not afraid to take a stand. And here we are now, almost 50 years, coming up on October, the 50th anniversary of this happening. What happened to the athletic careers of Carlos and Smith following their protest?
I think that not just their athletic careers, I think that they had very diminished career trajectories for a long time. They both actually played some professional football. They wound up crafting some academic careers to a point, but they were very much damaged, as many people were, by being outspoken for their beliefs. The context of their actions, I think, that's a fascinating thing to explore, because I think it's important to note that Smith was the son of sharecroppers. Carlos was born and raised in Harlem. They had grown up in the 1960s, where there was this spate of horrific assassinations of all these leaders, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, obviously, in April of that year. The President of the United States is assassinated. His brother that year in 68 is assassinated.
And you have the passage of the Civil Rights Act.
Passage of the Civil Rights Act.
When you look at 68, the context in which they made this protest, do you think that, because they were vilified by many Americans for having done this, instead of it being seen as this symbol of them embracing what they believed was right, a civil justice, a civil rights protest. Do you think that the American people would have responded in large the way they did had it not been in that context of 1968?
I don't think you can take it out of the context. I think that was such a turbulent time. We think of our own times in 2018 as a really fractious political time. And it is, indeed. But I think 1968, perhaps even more so. We were torn apart as a country over Vietnam. The greatest athletic figure of the 20th century, Muhammad Ali, was stripped of his heavyweight championship the year before for refusing to serve in Vietnam. You had Lou Alcindor, who we would come to know as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, not participating in the Olympics as political protest. So the context was very rich, and then also politically. I mean, you're coming out of a time of a number of years of progressive democratic rule, the Kennedy administration and LBJ and all, that he did to advance social justice. I mean, the Vietnam legacy, another part of it, obviously. But on the heels of that, you have this 1968 election, just 20 days, not even 3 weeks after the Black Power statement of Smith and Carlos, and who's elected? Richard Nixon. So it's that, the parallels, I think, that we see to our own day are really quite striking.
Yeah, let's talk about those parallels, because I think what's happening with Colin Kaepernick, when you look at that, so most recently, he's got the Nike contract, which is, seemingly lucrative for him, but then you have protests on the other side of that. But he's also been battling the NFL for almost 2 years now, although he did make a little legal inroads recently where the court's case is now allowed to move forward. But do you see parallels between what's happening between Colin Kaepernick and what happened to Carlos and Smith?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that Kaepernick essentially was blackballed by the NFL. I mean, he was really deprived of his livelihood. This was a starting quarterback, and a good one, in the NFL. Certainly there are some teams in the NFL that could use his services, and yet it was, abundantly clear. I think it doesn't pass the smell test as being anything other than an attempt to keep him out of the league. He was obviously targeted by our presidents, LeBron James as well. I mean, people who make that sort of statement often pay some price.
But you also have Colin Kaepernick saying time and again, this is not about me feeling un-American or unpatriotic or protesting the flag in some way. This is about taking a stand for injustice. Also, when I was doing preparation for this, I read in Slate magazine, they reminded me that, he kissed a tattoo every time he had a touchdown that said, reference to God. So it's got to be frustrating for Colin Kaepernick to be going through this, and just maddening, I would think.
I would think, and it just sort of coughs up that age-old question about what really constitutes patriotism. I would argue that we are a nation born of protest, that these nonviolent acts of illuminating injustice in our society advance us, that it forces us to take a hard look in the mirror, to live up to our most treasured ideals as a country, and that it is in balance really a positive thing. And this has certainly been true historically from the very foundation, Boston Tea Party forward. This is what makes this a great country.